Hey there, guys. Alright, today we are back with some more of the Great War, and this time we are on to week 164, an attempted military coup in Russia, the Kornilov Affair. Kornilov Affair. Before we dive in, make sure you go and check out the links in the description box below. I would love if you join the Discord and followed me over at Twitch. Yeah. um, I actually know what is going to be filling up the Great War slots once we have finished this main series here. Now, I do plan on still watching from this channel, watching some of their outside the main series videos, but no longer will they be like once. I'm not going to be watching this channel once every 4 days. And I may stop watching them for probably a couple months once we finish this, just to like de-cleanse. Because I've been watching this channel a lot for the last 2 years now. So yeah. But what's going to be filling up the time slot here, because we are nearing the end. I know it feels weird to say that at week 164, when World War One goes to week 214 or something like that. So really still got a good chunk left. Probably not going to be done with it by the end of this year of 2023, but early 2024 the series will be done. Um, and what I'll probably do is switch. We'll move geography now. We'll start doing geography now 2 times, once every 4 days, to catch up to geography now. And then we want to try and look really far into the future. I have no clue what I'll do once I catch up to geography now. So we'll see what happens when we get there, if I'm still even doing this. Because as of now, there really isn't too much incentive for me to still be here. Except for pure spite and stubbornness. Because I think someone said I wasn't going to do this, or they said, I've heard people say that if I finish the series, I'll be the first person to actually fully react to the series, and I'm very stubborn and I want to do that. So that's why we're still here, honestly. I'm not gonna lie. Anyways, that was the ramble here at the beginning of the video. Let's dive into the actual meat.
We've seen revolution in Russia this year. We've seen the July days with a renewed threat of it. And now Russia sees an attempted coup, the Kornilov Affair.
Dun dun dun. For context, never learned about the Kornilov affair in high school. Nor, and again, as I said in previous weeks, no classes that I took in university covered World War One. Um, so yeah, didn't learn it then either. I'm surprised. I'm curious how much of a big deal the Kornilov affair is, because I feel like, I don't know, the way it's getting hyped up right now. Am I hyping it up in my own head? Yes. But the way we've talked about Kornilov for the last few weeks, feels like maybe he's someone that should be talked about when discussing the revolutions in Russia, or at least perhaps the October Revolution. So I'm surprised I did not learn about him in AP European history back in high school. Maybe we did, and I'm just completely forgetting about it. But also at the same time, um, for those that may not have taken AP classes, or maybe you don't have them available, or they work differently, the way it worked for me and the way it still works as of right now, is that you essentially for the entire year are studying for a single test. And I think they tell the teachers, uh, I can't, I don't know exactly what they tell the teachers when it comes to like what to expect on the test and what to prepare for. I don't know if it changes year by year. I know the test itself changes year by year, and there's different emphasis, but essentially the teachers have like, what, 7 months or something. You don't get the full school year. you get like essentially your last month of school in the AP class is nothing because you take the test like the AP test like 1 month before actual finals or something like that. Um, but that whole year you're studying for that AP test because you could also, if you want, you can pay and have those credits apply to college. And in most situations, it can end up being a good idea, a cheaper idea. I didn't end up doing it, and it was probably the better idea. Um, it didn't really affect me much by not taking it. It wouldn't have saved me time. In fact, I might have actually saved money by not paying for the AP test, my AP test results, to apply to college or whatever, to work as college credit. Um, because I got really nice scholarships to community college and then to university for my last 2 years. So I lucked out in that it was actually cheaper for me to just take the class actually at college than it was to pay for the fucking AP courses. Um, I also think the AP test is kind of stupid. I think I think all standardized testing is fucking stupid. There is no standard when it comes to education. That's not how education should work. We should not be standardizing things. It should be a much more the education needs a fucking overhaul. There's a better way to do it, and we're not doing it. Anyways, the Kornilov, we didn't learn about him in World War One, and I think part of the reason maybe could be that we had to rush through like the 1900s so that we would have at least that information in our heads a little bit for the test. But yeah, there's a fucking tangent for you.
I'm Indy Nidell. Welcome to the Great War. Last week, there was major fighting in Italy and Romania, but far to the north, the German army took Riga with little resistance. This week sees an attempt to turn the Russian army on its own people. Okay, Prime Minister Alexander Kerensky said in a radio telegram to the whole
How did Kerensky live so long? Did he flee Russia?
country September
I
9th
don't
by our
know.
calendar. I hereby announce General Kornilov sent to me a demand for the surrender by the provisional government of all civil and military power, so that he may form, at his personal discretion, a new government to administer the country. He went on to say that he had been authorized to remove Kornilov as commander of.
Another thing I want to note, I don't know if I've said this in other videos. I have a lot to say for some reason today, which is rare. At least in regards to the Great War videos, I usually don't have too much to say. But what this is really highlighting here in 1917 is how really the cards just fell so horribly for Russia. The Soviet Revolution in October was not something that was guaranteed to happen after the February Revolution. The way general education has made it sound to me, from what I remember back in high school so many years ago. Oh geez, it feels weird to say that. They kind of made it almost insinuated that the Soviet Revolution was inevitable after, based upon the fact that, largely solely on the fact that the provisional government was not pulling Russia out of the war. And what this series is highlighting is that doesn't seem to have been the case at all. Yes, the Soviet government, the Soviets, were lobbying and actively fighting for no war. They wanted out of the war. But it doesn't sound like they wanted. It doesn't sound like the coup, the civil war was inevitable. It doesn't sound like even the destruction of the provisional government of democracy in Russia was inevitable. At least to me, that's what this is sounding like. That is how I am interpreting it at this very moment.
Of the army and to place Petrograd under martial law. Kornilov sent a telegram in response which said this is all a lie. He believes that, under Bolshevik pressure, Kerensky's provisional government acts in complete harmony with the plans of the German General Staff and was killing the army. Kornilov sends 3 cavalry divisions to capture Petrograd. Kerensky declared Kornilov a traitor and was now forced to appeal to the Bolsheviks of the Petrograd Soviet for support. From jail, Bolshevik leader Leon Trotsky advocated supporting Kerensky.
Never heard of him.
The Bolsheviks began arming the Petrograd workers for self-defense. The bourgeoisie think Kornilov will win. The British military mission declares its support of Kornilov. The next day,
Britain.
when part of Kornilov's army...
See, this is... when we look at history, and we look specifically at the stupidity of Western Europeans and how they treat the rest of Europe and also the Middle East, it's like, you're doing this to yourself for why they continue to distrust the West. Like, Britain, stay the fuck out. Like, it's not hard. Stay the fuck out. Leave them alone. Like,
reaches Petrograd by train, though, the locals delay the train, and some soldiers are mistakenly sent in the wrong direction. Workers fraternize with the Cossacks, and Alexander Krimov, their commander, afraid of Bolshevik propaganda, orders his men out of Petrograd to a nearby village. Even there, though, agitators sprang up, and the Cossacks began holding Soviet-style meetings. The same thing happens to Kornilov's famed Savage Division, which consists of soldiers from the Caucasus regions, and they even raise a red flag and arrest their commander. By the 11th, there are now 40,000 armed workers in Petrograd, Red Guards, who had been given back the arms confiscated during the July days, with thousands more support personnel. Rail workers tear up tracks to prevent Kornilov's advance. Telegraph workers slow down or halt military communications, sending copies to the Bolsheviks. Bolshevik soldiers begin arriving from Kronstadt and Viborg, even as those garrisons mutiny and shoot officers loyal to Kornilov. On the 12th, the Soviet announces that Kornilov's army has been defeated. It simply became demoralized and quit. Krimov commits suicide the 13th. Kornilov is arrested and jailed. Florence Harper, the first American woman journalist in Petrograd, had this to say of the situation. "I was filled with blind rage. We all knew it was the last chance. The Bolsheviki were armed. The Red Guard were formed. The split was definite. Kerensky was doomed." Embassies in the city began making plans to evacuate their staff and their expats. Foreign nationals were just leaving. There is no fear of the Germans coming soon, but a serious Bolshevik uprising is anticipated, and its success means anarchy. I just want to point out
with the
that though
bourgeoisie.
there were some anarchists who had joined the Bolsheviks, that wasn't the Bolshevik agenda at all. Anarchy in that quote meant simply chaos. And a side note here, a man arrived in Petrograd this week after traveling from San Francisco and overland from Vladivostok. He was an Englishman, a writer, who had been sent by British Secret Intelligence Service, which is now MI6, to prevent a Bolshevik revolution and keep Russia in the war. Tall order. His name was Somerset Maugham. There was some minor disturbance in a Western army this week. On the 9th, at Étaples in France, behind the lines, British soldiers, retraining after hospital stays, had some fights with the military police. The skirmishes spread, and a bunch of officers were thrown in the river. More disturbances happened the 12th, again with the MPs, but order was restored when the rigors of the retraining were to be relaxed. When the Chinese Labor Corps there also demanded better conditions, the troops suppressed them firmly with no concessions.
Of course.
Something that you could call a disturbance happened in the skies over the Western Front, as the legendary French flying ace Georges Guynemer, a national hero with 54 aerial victories to his credit, disappeared during a mission over Belgium. He never returned.
Y'all ever find his corpse?
And in France,
How the fuck does a man just disappear with a plane? I mean, I understand it happening over the oceans, but over Europe? And they don't... Huh?
as the Second Battle of Verdun came to an end with a French victory, a new infrastructure is being developed. General John Pershing, the commander of the American forces, who plans American active participation in the field for next summer, was setting one up, including a communications line linking his bases with the forward depots and the ports. He also created a purchasing board whose first act was to order 5,000 aircraft and 8,500 trucks from the French to be delivered by June. And it wasn't just Verdun II Electric Boogaloo which came to an end. The 11th Battle of the Isonzo River came to an official end September 12th. It was the deadliest of those battles, with casualties exceeding even those of the 10th. The Italians took over 150,000 casualties, and Austria-Hungary around 30 or 40,000 fewer. The Empire had lost the Bajansitsa Plateau, but they had kept their hold on their new defensive lines and managed to regain positions this week on Monte San Gabriele with vicious counterattacks. Different sources have different answers to the question, who won? But John MacDonald calls...
My question for the Isonzo River is why? Specifically to Luigi Cardona. Why? Why are you so stupid?
An unequivocal Austrian victory in Caporetto and the Isonzo campaign. First, the Italians missed two opportunities for a breakthrough and total victory. At the start of the battle, General Caviglia's brilliant tactics caught Borojevic completely by surprise. By the morning of the 20th of August, the Austro-Hungarians were in chaotic retreat. On the 22nd of August, the defense fell apart, and on a mile-wide front, all that faced the Italians was dead and wounded Austrian soldiers. The greatest opportunity of the war was lost. Secondly, the Italian High Command's view that they had won a great victory with the capture of the Bajansitsa established a mindset of one more push and we will have won the war, and this clouded their vision on other issues. They largely ignored the need to organize their own defenses. Thirdly, the deadly cost of attritional warfare had very seriously damaged the morale of the Italian soldiers. The 10th battle had cost the Italian more than the other previous 9 battles put together, and the number of dead in the 11th battle would exceed that of the 10th. The infantry had fought one battle too many. Morale was indeed plummeting. In the Italian army, like the other armies, the majority of capital sentences were given for desertion, but punishment was harsher in the Italian army. First, desertion was more widely defined and included draft dodging. So, of the 189,000 soldiers in total accused of desertion, not much over 5% of that was desertion in the face of the enemy. And a lot of it was things like returning home late from leave. Unlike, for example, British military law, Italian didn't allow you to use your intention as a defense. The prosecutor simply had to show that you were not with your unit. Capital sentences were by now mandatory, and for a while, you got the death penalty if you were more than 3 days late from leave, but last month, that was cut to 1 day. In other countries, military censors read...
What if your train is late? Or what if you missed the train, like accidentally?
...soldiers' letters to gauge their moods. In Italy, it was for repression. It was a crime to write negatively about war operations, mention news that had not been made public, or write anything which might lower public spirits. It wasn't just that you had to leave out info that might be sensitive. All criticism was suppressed, and a lot of soldiers got long prison terms from this. You complain about your rations, you might get a year in jail. One private got 4 years for writing that the newspaper stories about troop morale were full of lies. By now, Generalissimo Luigi Cadorna and his high command believed that responsibility for low morale at the front was solely because of socialists and pacifists who wanted Italy to lose the war and somehow infiltrated the front with propaganda. Cadorna wrote to Prime Minister Paolo Boselli, accusing him of letting Italy's internal enemies go merrily about their business and to match the extreme severity of military justice with the rest of the country. This was sort of meaningless, though, since Italy had been pretty much in a martial state for a couple of years, and since just this spring, civilians living outside the war zone could be tried by courts martial. And the week ends, and with it, the 11th Battle of the Isonzo River, the 2nd battle at Verdun, the life of Guynemer, and Lav Kornilov's hopes for control of Russia. Kornilov made 3 mistaken assumptions that ended his coup before it even began. 1. He assumed his soldiers were interested in a revolution in the first place. 2. He assumed that they would not have conflicting political ties to parties that opposed a military dictatorship. 3. He assumed that his soldiers were as nationalistically driven as his command. These incorrect assumptions led to dissent in the ranks that turned into all-out desertion, leaving General Kornilov without muscle when he arrived in Petrograd. He may not have had muscle, but you can see who now did? The Bolsheviks. Thousands upon thousands of the Red Guard were now armed and in Petrograd, and that does not bode well. If you want to learn more
Does not bode well for the rich.
about the Italian front in 1917, I highly recommend the book by John MacDonald that I quoted earlier. There is an affiliate link to the...
Okay, and that was the attempted military coup in Russia, the Kornilov Affair, the Great War, week 164. Got nothing to add here at the end. I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.